Okay, let me search warrants 2 here. So, you've got kind of the 3 parts of the system: defense, prosecutor, and a judge. Well, as a citizen, you're down here, and you may need the defense sometime, and you may need a prosecutor sometime. If you're a victim of a crime, you want the prosecution to go after the bad guy. If you're a victim of government, and the government comes after you unfairly or unjustly, you're going to need a defense to protect you. The defense's job to me is a big checkpoint, because it kind of says, we're not going to let the government overrun somebody. We're not going to let the government get away with things. We're not going to allow the government to stack a case against somebody and convict them unjustly. So the defense is a crucial part of the style. Now, and cops, you talk to most cops, they're going to badmouth defense attorneys. They're going to hate them. They're crooked. They're no good. They're all pieces of shit. Blah, blah, blah. They're not going to like defense attorneys. Why? Because as a cop, you're always working for the prosecutor. You're always working. That prosecutor can file charges against you. He can make your case. He can get you in good cases. He can make you look like a fool on the stand. He can protect you when you're on the stand. He can give you immunity. Prosecution has all the power. So, you know, I never got why cops can't talk to the defense. To me, that just drove me nuts. If you ain't got nothing to hide, why are you hiding something? So in a search warrant, when I do a search warrant, the prosecution or the defense has to attack the warrant and not me. Now, how he can attack me is when you told the judge this, there's a thing that's called withholding or going to multiple judges. Technically, if I take my warrant to a judge and the judge says no, which rarely ever happens, it especially doesn't happen now when you got secret courts, secret judges, the government's giving out warrants left and right, you got judges on the payroll that work for the NSA basically. Anytime they want something, they bring it to the judge, and the judge goes, oh yeah, I'll sign this, I gotta go to lunch. So there's no review whatsoever. The review process is gone. Our Constitution is getting chewed up. The system's a joke. But the purpose behind it is the judge should be looking out for everyone's interest in the law and saying this is good or bad. So if I bring this to a judge and the judge goes, nope, I don't think you have enough. What happens a lot, and I think it's not supposed to happen, I know it's not supposed to happen, but I don't know if it happens as often as it does, a cop will take it to another judge and say, hey, and this judge will sign it. Now if the defense finds out about this, absolutely clear-cut, can't do it. This judge made a ruling on the facts. This judge made a different ruling. Technically, if I take this to another judge, I have to tell this judge, Judge so-and-so read this and said he don't think I have enough. But I think I do. I want you to review it. If you tell a judge that, there's the good old boy system. They all go to lunch. They're all in the same bar association. They all play at the same racquetball club. They're all buddies. No judge is going to review a warrant and say, that judge is full of shit, I'll sign it. Here. Ain't going to happen. So cops don't tell the other judge that the other judge said no. And then they sign it. And then later, if it ever comes out, this judge goes, why didn't you tell him? Oh, you know what? I forgot. Well, I think they'll raise hell, threaten the prosecution, and be like, I don't care. You got the warrant. We got the evidence. I ain't going to prosecute you. So the problem with cops is because we work for the prosecution, we have this kind of rolling immunity. Unless we piss off the prosecutor, he's going to protect us. He needs us to make his case. He needs us to give him he needs to have our credibility intact. Otherwise, when we find evidence, he's going to say, I can't really use that because his credibility and he got caught lying and I charged him with perjury. That's why cops don't get charged a whole bunch. When a cop gets charged on something, he's either pissed off the prosecution, he's pissed off the administration. The administration has to deal with the prosecutor. There's something going on besides just what the cop did normally. Because most of the time it's covered up, brushed under the rug. We can't lose this cop if he's got a lot of cases. Now if he's kind of a low life, he doesn't do much, he don't do anything, he's never helped, nobody knows him, nobody really likes him, well then it's easier to get rid of him. Because he's not really valued to anybody, so nobody cares. But if you've got a guy that's out there working homicides, drug prosecution, rapes, kidnapping, and he's involved and he's got 20 cases lined up, because it may take years to get your case to go to trial, and they need this guy as a witness in one of these cases, if this guy does something wrong, don't think that don't come into play. Don't think the prosecution doesn't go, man, if I go after him, that means I'm going to lose all these other cases. It has to be really bad for them to want you over several other cases. Just like when prosecutors get caught lying and cheating. You don't hear about it, it's covered up, they get sanctioned, they get put out, they're cut some backdoor deal, they're paid to go away because they don't want this prosecution to got caught lying and cheating for everybody that was ever convicted by him to now do an appeal and say, he lied then, he probably lied when he did in my case. So the system protects itself. That's why I'm not a fan of the system. That's why people go, man, you're kind of anti-government. Oh, you're kind of, well, you know what? I've seen the flaws. I've been there when it's been abused, and you're right, I don't like government. I think they have too much power. I think they're too big. I think they're unaccountable. I think they trample on the citizens. I think they don't follow the Constitution. I think they think they're special in law. How can you say the prosecution isn't special and the prosecution can give somebody immunity? They can give me immunity even if I commit a crime and go, you know what? Don't worry about it. We just need you to testify here. They can get a guy out of prison who committed a crime, who was convicted by a court, convicted by a jury, put in prison. The prosecution can go, hey, if you testify for me, I'll let you out. I'll give you immunity. Don't worry about it. How can you say that it's fair? And that's what prosecutors do when they manipulate the system. They're always cut and deal with felons. And when let's see, let me ask one of you here. You're in prison. You're going to be in prison for 20 years. Prosecutor comes to you and says, hey, do you know something about this? Because if you know it, probably I can help you out. I tell the prosecutor what he wants to hear that helps his case, and I get out of prison. Let me think. Do I want to do that? Well, of course they do it. That's why when they have somebody testify in front of a jury, they're always trying to confuse them and go, oh, isn't it true you were convicted, but you don't have anything in this case, and we're not promising you, and there's all these backdoor deals. Look, if somebody's convicted or they're getting out of prison to testify to prosecution, the prosecution has cut them a sweet deal, and their testimony ain't worth beans to me. I don't buy it. And you know, prosecutors will get upset about that and go, oh man, we really need this guy. He's the kingpin of our case. Without this guy in prison, our case falls apart. You know what? If your case is that shitty that it hangs on a guy that's in prison, then you probably shouldn't be prosecuting it. That's not the way it is, though. They get this guy out of prison, they cut a deal, they put him on witness protection, they do whatever they want to do to get him to turn on the thing, and then they paint it off to the jury that, oh, we really need to do this. And they use terms like, sometimes when we're dealing with bad people, you have to pick the less evil of all of them, or the worst. And they come up with all these great sayings, and the jury goes, oh, that's a tough job. Those poor prosecutors have such a tough job. They got all the power and all the money and all the ability to cut deal. It ain't a tough job. They do it, and they make it tough, and they make it seem tough to manipulate the jury. So when a search warrant happens, you need to realize it's not a big end of the world. It's not the end all. It's not that we had all this powering evidence to get this search warrant. And the other problem you need to realize is when somebody seals a search warrant, they really don't want to get out. Now, there's a reason to seal a search warrant. If I do a search warrant and it's an ongoing investigation, there's certain search warrant becomes public once I file the return. When I do a search warrant, I search, I seize evidence. When I seize that evidence, I turn that evidence into court and say, this is what I got from this search warrant. And then that gives my credibility later that I've served 20 search warrants, and all 20 search warrants have resulted in evidence. So that gives me a little bit more credibility when I go get another warrant. Well, what it also does is it makes this a government document. Government documents are public, so now people can get access to that information. If I use confidential sources or confidential information that will compromise my ongoing investigation, I can have this warrant sealed. And once I have it sealed, here's the problem. There's no limit on how long. I just have it sealed. Now nobody can get that document. When a warrant is sealed, questions need to be popping in people's mind. Why is this warrant sealed? Are they really, because cops seal it all the time just for GP, because they don't want to know it's a shitty warrant, because they don't want to get out, for whatever reason they want. They just try, a lot of people, crooked cops, I know a lot of cops that will seal warrants for the main purpose just because they don't want somebody reading their shit. Because all their warrants are the same, they change the names, they're all the same, they're BS, and the next thing you know, people are going to jail who really aren't guilty, but the prosecution loves them because they get a conviction, they get somebody to go to jail. So, a search warrant, not a big deal, easy to get, there's flaws. It's better when cops get warrants because it gets other people involved. There's not just a cop making all the decisions independently and that he has to justify. He puts it on paper. He has it reviewed by the prosecution. Prosecution, since they're defending a warrant, I don't know if I covered this, they have to review it before it goes to the judge. A lot of judges will ask, what DA reviewed it? There's usually a spot on my warrants that says DA review, and they have to sign it to show that it went to DA before I bring it to the judge. Because the DA may read something in there and go, oh man, you put that in there, and if I go to court, man, that's going to bite me in the butt. Take that out. I don't like that. Because I put it in there because it's true, but they don't want it in there because they're like, it doesn't help the case. You can get the warrant without it. I don't want to give that up. If the defense gets this, I don't want them knowing that we know this. Again, there's that manipulation of the system that always goes on. So I guess my point on the search warrant was whether this guy had a fake search warrant. They said they went and got all these people. To get a search warrant is fairly easy, but if you do something really intrusive, like if I go try to get a warrant to where I want to do a cavity search on somebody, I have to have pretty good evidence on why I think there's dope or gun or something up that guy's butt in order to get a hospital to force a cavity search and to start doing a probe in that guy's butt to find something. Normally what you would do is you would lock that person up in a padded cell where no place he can get rid of something, and you would give him on potty watch, and he would shit in a bucket, and then after he shit, you would take that out, search the shit, and then when you found what he shitted out, you would know it was up his butt. If you kept him in there for 3 days and didn't come out, well, you know, he was under constant video surveillance. We saw that he wasn't getting it and reading it. I mean, I was working Vallejo, I'd be chasing guys, they had crack cocaine in their pocket, running behind them with a cop. They pull that shit, they carry it in their ass, because a lot of cops will miss it. If they got a fat ass, it'll wrap around those little balls. And I'd see guys pull it out of their ass while they're running, shove it in their mouth and swallow it. And then people wonder why cops are cynical about how sick people are. Alright, hopefully that helps you understand a search warrant a little bit. Went a little long. If you understand the process of government, the key players, how it works, hopefully you'll understand how easy it is for you to get caught up in that system and get eaten up by that system that you think has checks and balances, is there to protect you, when it really isn't. I mean, I think we give out way too many guilty verdicts. I think we need to make prosecutors do much better jobs in court, and they should not be getting... The more that juries come back with not guilty, the more it forces prosecutors to come with better cases. So they stop this harassing citizens and going after every case they can and throwing shit against the wall and see what sticks. Because that's where prosecution are at. Government's so big now, we have so many attorneys, we have so much government, we have to justify all these jobs, we have to justify all these cops, we have to justify all these prosecutions. Well, now they're just taking cases they shouldn't. If jury people got together and started voting not guilty more, prosecutors would change their behavior and say, you know what, we're not going to prosecute. Defense attorneys would say, you know what, if you want to take this to trial, we can, but you're going to lose. Don't be trying to pull the shit on the jury in our eyes. That would keep the system. The system has to be kept in check by the people. Whether it's through the jury system voting not guilty on everything. If you want to send a message to a crooked DA, you have every jury in that jurisdiction start voting not guilty on every trial, no matter what it is. And you take away that prosecutor's ability to get convictions. Defense attorneys won't cut deals with them. Defense attorneys will want to go to court, and they'll know they're going to lose, so the prosecution will have to change what he does, and that's how you hold a district attorney, prosecutor, whatever they call them, city attorney. That's how you hold them accountable. You get the citizens together and you all start voting not guilty. That's how you put them in check. Government needs checks and balances. They need to be checked by the people. When you let government grow, you give them all the power, you submit, and you just go along with them, that's when they get oppressive, they get tyrannical, they get crazy, they start doing things they shouldn't be doing because the people do not hold them in check. Our system is based on a voluntary compliance system. It only works when the citizens comply voluntarily. As soon as the citizens say no and we stop voluntary compliance, the system stops. People don't realize the power they have. It's kind of like there's a picture to where the people are standing on one end of a board and the other end of the board is over a cliff, and it has one person that's labeled the government. If the people step off that board, the government fails and it falls. So the people have the power. If they exercise it, use it, and hold the government in check. When they don't care, they get busy, they're too worried about paying their taxes, too worried about keeping their health care, too worried about Democrat, Republican, this race, that sex, this gender, this sexual orientation. When they get all the people involved in all this other shit to divide us, That's when government grows and the people fail. All right, hope that helps on search warrants. We'll end that there. Buddy Mr. T, you're a good boy.